data from an API. Okay, as I'm still saying it again, that there is no application, web application in this world which is not okay. How I'm just going below. Simple terms. Response. Now another most important thing you need to remember post and so on. 70. I'll just simply go ahead and call my rest of the functions. What I will do is I'll simply make is the rig API is called or not URL, okay, but it is still trying to get the URL. If it is able to hit use the shorthand of happy, but now hey guys, welcome back to our channel KnowledgeKeen, and this is your friend Wasim. Today we are going to see very interesting topic, that is how to get data from an API. Right now we are going to see the first and the most important topic, that is our fetch. How to fetch and data from an API, and this is a very important topic. I'll tell you why. Because there is no application in this world which is not going to get the data from an API. Okay, as I'm still saying it again, that there is no application, web application in this world which is not going to get a data from an API. API as in from a server, from a database. It might be from a simple JSON. It can be from anywhere, but it has to fetch that application. It has to go beyond its application framework limits, go somewhere else, get the data from there, and then populate it in our application. Yes, we can do that, and that is the most interesting part about developing an application, that you can pull data from anywhere in the world in a fraction of seconds, and we are going to see how. So let's not waste any time, we'll dive in right into the code. Okay, so let me quickly create, I'll just remove all of them. I don't want this. So under pages, I'll create another folder for fetch API. Okay, and in this we'll basically add all our API calls. Simple. I'll create one simple file, that is fetch example, fetch component .js. So there are basically multiple ways to call an API. Okay, in generic terms or in general world we use two ways. The first one is our favorite JavaScript default fetch, okay, where you don't need any external plugin. It is already inbuilt in your application, in your browser, basically you can say, because browser is made of JavaScript. So it is already inside your JavaScript, and we are writing JavaScript. React is JavaScript. So even if you're using TypeScript, JavaScript, any other language, fetch will already be available for you. You don't need any external plugin. Then we have our second most favorite, that is Axios. Axios we use because it has another benefits over fetch, but we will see when we are going to learn that Axios, not now. AXIOS. Let's go slow and slow. So we'll see, we'll create const fetch component equal to our favorite process, creating a component, return this is fetch component. Okay, export default fetch component. Now I'm doing it wrong. It has to be starting from capital. I know, I keep forgetting things. Now we go to our app. We'll just remove this. We don't want parent, we want our fetch. Oops, we want our fetch component. It's calling properly. Okay, so we are at our fetch component. Here you can see. Now what we will do, we will call a dummy JSON placeholder. So this JSON placeholder, you can see free fake API for testing and prototyping. So this is an API, okay, which will basically give you sample APIs to test. Now what are these APIs? APIs are nothing but simply you have like users, to-dos, photos, all these are simple URLs. This is an URL. You hit this URL, you get the data. That's the API. Okay. So what is an API? Hit the URL. API is a URL. hit the API, hit the URL, and you will get a set of data. Now, how will you get that data? They are using some HTTP methods. Like we have get to get the data. We have post to post the data, to basically insert the data. Then we have put to update the data, and we have delete to delete the data. Simple. Okay, so we will see the basics of it, how to simply get some data from the API, and we are going to use get. We'll click. There are n number of posts that we have. I think it is around 100. Okay, there are 100 posts, and we'll fetch all these 100 posts in like this. We'll go here. So this is my URL. I'll go. Let me remove this to the side. I'm not gonna import anything. I'm just going to say use effect, because this API should be called at the very beginning of my application. The mounting phase, we have seen this. If you don't know what is the mounting phase, quick jump back to my videos. I'll try to share the link in the I button above. So what I will do, I'll simply write fetch. See, nothing is imported. Fetch my URL dot then. So basically, if you just say fetch, okay, pass the URL, it is going to hit the URL. It has three different things: then, finally, and catch. Then for successful responses, catch for all the error responses, and finally, irrespective of then and catch, it is going to always call the finally block. Simple terms. Then, so how we write then, you can keep it here. Let's just format it. It's nice. Response. So we will be getting successful response. It doesn't have to be response. I can write my name, Wasim. I can write KnowledgeKeen. That's okay. Okay, it doesn't has to be response, but we are smart developers, so we have to write it properly. Response, our favorite fat arrow, curly braces, and within this curly braces, simply what you can do is you can print your response here. It will give you plain and simple response. Let's see what is happening. Okay, we'll go to our application. We'll just do a quick refresh, and you see you are getting a response. Now if you open, you'll get blah blah blah, so many things which you don't require. But where is our data? We said we hit the URL, we get the data, but where is our data? I don't see any headers. The status is 200. Now another most important thing you need to remember is HTTP status codes. Okay, Google, correct it for me. Yeah. So if you go to any website, you see like there are 5 different types of status codes. All the status responses coming from 100 to 199 are informational responses. 200 to 299 are successful. Basically, whenever your API is getting called and you get a response, irrespective whether you get the data or no, you're hitting the server and you're getting a response back. That means it is successful. So it is 200. Redirectional messages. Let's say, for example, you're hitting the URL, but your server is redirecting it to somewhere else. So that is 300 to 399. 400, basically we have seen this 400 errors like 404 page not found. So these all are like errors. So they keep bombarding error. So that is 400 to 499. These are all our errors. 500, basically if server is down, if server is having some issues, it will start throwing you the 500 errors. So these basically all the errors in the world, okay, are categorized into this successful, error, and everything. All the responses are categorized in 5 different ways. I hope I made some sense. So right now we are getting 200. So let's see, we'll quickly go and we'll see what is this 200. If I go to successful responses, see 200, okay. And if you just see, it should say okay. We have an okay. So that means we have a response. So successful on this request succeeded. The result meaning of success depends on the HTTP method. You have get, put, post, and so on and so forth. But for us, 200 successful. We go back to here, we see, okay, blah 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 blah, so many things are there, but in our body, where is our response? We don't have a response. So to get that response, you have to do some other trick that is called as response.json. You have to JSONify your response. Still you will see a promise. Promise is fulfilled. Fetch uses promises. Okay, so what is a promise? Now we are again diverting from our original topic. We want data. We don't want your promises. We don't want your readable streams. We want response. But promise, that is whenever something is taking asynchronous calls. Fetch is an asynchronous call because it will take how much time we really don't know. If you go to the network tab, you will see exactly what is the size and how much time it is taking. 17 milliseconds. But again, if you click here, if you go to preview, you will see yes, there are hundreds of records that I have. But again, I am not able to use it anywhere because my fetch is not giving me the responses as I need it. So there are a couple of steps that you need to take. The first and the most important step, let me just quickly go and do Control Z. Instead of curly braces, what I will do, I will say response.json. So the first step is I am converting it, and after converting, after you are done converting, again I have another then. So I am telling fetch, okay, so I'm just, what I'm doing now, I'm chaining the methods. Okay, after you're done converting, give me a proper response. I can just say res. I don't want to confuse you all, so I am not going to write again response. I'll simply say res curly braces so that I can add multiple lines of code. Console.log res comma res data in response. I'll write something meaningful. If you refresh, you can see the data is in response is 100. We got the data. So what is the data? Blah 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 blah. We don't know what exactly it's trying to say. It's a dummy data. It's a dummy JSON. It's a fake API. So it is going to give you all the blah 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 XYZ error. We don't need the error. We just needed to see the responses. We have successfully able to fetch the data. This is how you call the fetch. Plain and simple. It's very simple, right? This is absolutely correct. But in KnowledgeKeen, we see one step ahead, a good way. We usually don't write fetch in an use effect. We usually do it in, let's say, fetch all posts. We write a function for it. Okay, it's a good habit. It's a good practice. Some people will say, no, you can directly write it. I would say, yes, you can directly write it. Nobody is stopping you doing that. But, nobody's stopping you doing that. But each developer has its own way of saying good habits and bad habits. But if you see your code is neat and clean, I would say that's a good habit. For me, this is a good habit. So I'm doing it like this. So I'm not directly calling all, I'm just not dumping everything in my use effect. I'm just simply saying call a method and my method will say I'm calling an API. Okay. I will show you a neat trick of fetch. I'll just say console.log hello, I am called after fetch, right? My fetch is here, and after my fetch is done, console.log JavaScript line by line execution, right? So for me, what it should do is console.log data in response and then hello. Let's see what it does. Let me quickly do a refresh. Oops, what is it doing? It's saying hello, I am called after fetch, and then my data is called. What's happening? It's doing the exactly opposite what it should do. So now JavaScript's default behavior kicks in. JavaScript says all the asynchronous calls go in my queue, and JavaScript waits for no one. And this is a very important thing to remember, because we do this mistake often while working with fetch, basically calling the APIs. The same thing happens with Axios. The same thing is happening with your fetch. So if I want to say, let's say I want to call something, but that should be called only after my API is called, this thing will start failing because JavaScript waits for no one. Okay, so my console will be called first, the last console, line number 14, and my fetch execution will be done later. So fetch going in an API call, and it is taking somewhere around 22 milliseconds. So JavaScript still will not wait for your 22 millisecond. It say you call whenever you want, you take 22 seconds or 22 minutes. I don't want to wait for you. I'll just simply go ahead and call my rest of the functions. So how to make JavaScript wait? If you want to make that scenario, we have to use, there is another concept, async await. Very interesting concept, very neat and clean to write. All I have to do is make your function asynchronous, okay, and ask everything else to await. Now let's see what happens. Refresh. Let me go to my console. If you see, now my responses are called first, then my hello is called, my statement hello I am called after fetch. So what it is doing, simply two characters, two words, not characters, two words, async and await. It's doing, my function is asynchronous, it's telling the coming function is asynchronous, and if it is asynchronous, all the things have to await, okay, for whichever thing is taking long. Interesting, isn't it? Yes, it is very interesting. So this is how you use async await. I hope I'm making some sense. This is very interesting. This is very important. And this is the way we usually call. Let's jump one step ahead now. So, okay, now let's see how errors are handled. We have catch. As I said at the very beginning, we have then for success, catch for error. So I'll say, okay, I'll write error for you. So I'll say simply console.log error occurred. Pardon my spellings, but that's fine for now. Error. I'm just simply writing, getting this error and displaying it here. Let's go. As I don't have any error, it is not going into the error block. You can see here, it's just simply data and my API. Let me try to break. Let me just say post something. It doesn't have anything. And what I will do is I'll simply make the URL invalid instead of post1. So there is no URL called as post1. So my URL is invalid. Let me do a refresh. You can see data in response and hello. My error is 404. Okay. And it's still going into the success. Why? I said all the error should go into error block. Here it is not going in error occurred, but it is going in data in response. So in fetch, only one thing would be called. Either it can be success, either it can be error, either it can be then, either it can be catch. Both will not be called at one time. So now, interesting part over here is what is then and what is catch, but why exactly it is not going in error? Because if you see, it is still responding with something. So as I said before, the success is the request is succeeded irrespective your API is called or not. Okay. Here for me, I know this is 404. It is, we have hit the URL. Okay. But it is still trying to get the data. To tackle this scenario, now let me show how to break this, to how to go into the error block. I'll make the host invalid. So there is no host with that name. Now this is your API failed because it doesn't detect it's a right host. Then it will start going in your error. See, now it is coming into your error occurred and then it is trying to show you the error. I hope you understand this. The URL, if it is able to hit the URL, it will not go into the catch block until and unless something big happened, your URL itself is invalid, then it will start going into your error. We can use the shorthand of fetch. So instead of this then chaining dot catch and so on and so forth, we can simply do is I will comment this whole thing out. Okay, I'll start all over again. But let me remove this to be more simple, to make it more simple. I have simple await. Let me make this as a valid JSON. Okay. Now what I will say, I will say const fetch posts equal to something. Oops. Wait, but here. Okay. What I am doing, I am saying take a variable, okay, fetch post and wait till I call the fetch. Now console.log will see what fetch posts do. Not all posts, fetch posts. Refresh again, like how we saw before, we are getting the response. But now it's not JSONified. We have to JSONify it. Again, we'll take another variable, const response, a proper response. So that is my fetch posts.json. But as I said, what it will do, if I just response, it will send me a promise, which I don't want. So what I'll say, wait till it completes. Now if you see, it just returns me the number of my data. 100 records, 100 posts, I am absolutely fine. I get my response. We are absolutely happy. But now, if you want to see if my error is occurring, something like this, refresh, I don't get a response, it is throwing 404. I just need to say fetch posts, and you will see I have this OK as false. That means something bad is happening. My API is not proper. Even I have the status code. So it's easy for you to track the status codes. It's easy for you to track the OKs. And now if I want to say, just say OK, I'll simply say fetch post dot OK. And if it is not OK, I can start throwing my error. Console.log error. Okay, and what would be the error? I can just say whatever the status is, just start printing that status or status text. It will just start giving me that particular status text, status 404. Simple, easy, neat and clean. If I want to see the response, I have my response. Right now there is no response. So instead of doing this, I can simply say once it is done, return, so that it will stop giving me the responses back. And if it is there, I'll just say return the response. So only it will return the response if it is successful, like this. If my URL is valid, it will start giving me the proper responses. You need to catch it so that you will get a proper response. We are not getting the proper responses yet. I'll show you console.log. You'll say what I'm trying to say. I'm returning it. If you're returning something, you have to catch it. You're throwing something, you need to catch it like this. Again, that will be like then and all, so and so forth. But for us right now, the simplest thing is we got the response. This is how we tackle all the errors. This will not work if again my URL is invalid. If you see, fail to fetch, it's not printing this console.log. How should I tackle that? Then comes our try catch. Try everything, catch, error, and console.log in catch block with an error. Save, refresh, and here you can see your error. I hope this was easy. You are able to understand. You don't need to remember so many things. You simply need to remember two things. The first thing, fetch, then catch. How you use them, fetch dot then dot catch. Okay, and how to use async await. It is very important. Again, I'm saying very important to use async await, because if you want to wait for your code execution to stop there for until and unless your API is done, you have to use async await. Otherwise, the rest of your code will start moving ahead and your API will come sometime later. The second thing is how to use shorthand of that fetch like this, and you will be able to track all your error handling. I hope now this was something interesting which made you which piqued your interest, okay, and you felt something interesting was coming your way. And if you like this video, if I was able to explain the fetch simply in a very simple terms, and if it was interesting for you, please, I would request to give us a thumbs up, and I'd like to read your comments and to reply. I hope I have not missed any comments till date to reply, but I'll keep trying to respond to all the comments as much as I can. Thank you guys. Have a good day.